central to today's environment in which this bill is being brought, and that is Bhopal. The consequences of Bhopal continue to affect, they continue to influence, and they continue to seize our sensibilities in this entire matter. What therefore happens, as I shared in a private conversation with the leader of the House, the challenge to governance becomes how to meet the requirements of that are otherwise there of meeting the energy shortages through nuclear route and the public policy and posture in this regard. You have to reconcile these two, what are apparently in conflict. Why are they in conflict? Firstly, because the nature of nuclear energy being such that everything nuclear is treated with a great degree of caution and skepticism. Secondly, why nuclear? Because we have all along, up till now, treated the nuclear as rather a closed-door activity, which is why Pandit Nehru had made it Atomic Energy Commission, like planning commission, because he didn't want the effort of the country to be trapped in the bureaucratic rigmarole that otherwise today seizes India in its fist. So it became a commission. But the adverse consequence of it becoming a commission was that it got removed from the public concern, public information, and everything nuclear became a kind of a closed-door secret activity. Now, with the kind of effort that we are making to get the entire world community involved, when legislations are being brought, a contrary demand arises in public mind. What is it? Is it dangerous? Not dangerous? It therefore becomes incumbent of the government to work on the foundation of this and to re-educate. It's no longer a question, Mr. Minister, of carrying the Parliament alone with you. You have to carry the country with you. That is public policy. And you have the state, the interest of the state does of course require energy. Who questions that? How do you reconcile this? Not through secrecy. Now I submit to you here, there is a great deal of disquiet, Mr. Prime Minister, that we have, that there have been initiatives taken by the government which have come to Parliament only afterwards, as a kind of an ex post facto discussion. You arrived at, you have often given us assurances in Parliament when the 205 journey of nuclear cooperation started. I don't want to cover that entire thing again. The same questions arise about this. An appearance has been created that the government has not been candid enough with us. And the government has tried to hustle us suddenly, because if the IOU was of 2008, then why in the 8th month of 2010 are you suddenly in a hurry to get it done? These are questions. You don't have to answer to me, but you have to answer is a question that arises in the mind of our citizens. So this is really where I might overuse the example of the bone. This is where the bone is struck. Because essentially what you're trying to do between facilitation, essentially for the suppliers of nuclear commerce, and public perception and policy. You're trying to reconcile these two, which is not an easy task, I accept it. But you have gone about it in a fashion that raises questions and doubts, which only you can answer. We are, of course, and I do ask these questions, but I ask these questions not with any malign intent. I ask these questions because I'm really concerned. It's an important step that India is taking. And Candor is essential in such important steps. You can't be anything else but candid or the whole matter. Now, Sir Dr. Manmohan Singh has taken many steps in this regard. I appeal to you to please take the observations that I have made in the light of it. Because along with the kind of secretiveness, it is also, if you permit me, Mr. Minister, to say, as a kind of, as some of my friends say, kind of sleight of hand trickery. If you agree to one particular draft, it goes back and comes in. You agree to that, then intent comes in. It creates an impression of repeated and continuous sleight of hand. It's not really a card game of that nature. It's a very serious endeavor. So to carry the Parliament with you would relatively be a simpler and an easier issue. I must very quickly cover some other issues. We covered the rationales of the issue we've covered. There are some other difficulties. There are difficulties with the amendments that have already been moved. And I must acknowledge how much I have benefited by discussing the amendments with my colleague, Jaswant Singh. I wish very much he had intervened, because on the amendments he certainly far more better than far. Now, there is larger, very broadly, is the larger conceptual and fundamental question. There are these drafting and other procedural difficulties which I've just covered. We have covered the question of why this kind of artificial urgency. In the hierarchy of priorities, is this the most important activity that you have? I don't want to. I am sorry to say. Perhaps we are also guilty and are answerable. I do think the hierarchy of priorities. I would personally wish to spend much more time in what is happening in Jammu and Kashmir today. Yes. It is an important piece of legislation, yes. But what is happening in Jammu and Kashmir is also the most centrally important issue that concerns the country. The Honorable Prime Minister quite rightly has pointed out that the question of Maoists is a question that poses the most serious challenge to India's internal security. I would think that that would rate a higher priority. But the efforts that you have made on this, I really wish at times that is a very able Home Minister, whom I have very high regard. He had been given the freedom to operate and try and arrive at discussion on, you got a carte blanche to sit with us. And he could then sit with us and talk about Kashmir or about the Maoists or other law and order issues. I don't want to continue to labor this point. That's what. Then there is also, Mr. Minister, there's some conflict and confusion between foreign policy, international relations, non-proliferation. Why do I say India stand apart? India is not South Korea, Japan, or any other country. We stand apart because we are not. We are not an NPT country. We are also not a CTBT country. Yet we are a nuclear power. And yet we are recognized as standing on the doorsteps of being a nuclear power. Therefore, we have to conduct ourselves in civil affairs. We don't have to conduct ourselves as a kind of a supplicant to the United States of America. We are in a buyer's market. We have to therefore work on the basis of being able to dictate terms as we had done earlier. We were discussing in the WTO or elsewhere, not dictating terms, but standing for India. That is all that is required. So there are questions that arise about, in a manner like this, about private versus public. 49% private ownership in any case is permitted at the present moment. Do you intend to go further? Some of the provisions in your, if you don't intend to go further, then some of the provisions in the amendments, etc., really